The chair detects a quorum. Ms. Todd, if you'll take the roll, please.
Mayor Joe Collins.
Here.
Judge Steve Daniel.
Here.
Leslie Collins.
Here.
Claire Maxwell. Here. Michael McDonald.
Here.
All are present. Second order of business is to approve the minutes, and I understand that we've got some questions on the minutes, so we'll take and entertain those questions now. Before we do so, I want to remind that the minutes of this meeting or any other board meeting are a reflection of the action proposed and taken by the board. It's not meant to be a report or a journal of all things discussed or said. So with that in mind, does anybody have any questions, amendment, or changes they would like to propose to the minutes?
Yes, I would like to propose a couple of minor changes. They won't change anything substantive.
Okay.
So under approved minutes from October 10th, 2022, in that last paragraph, I would like to see the slash and or deleted, so it would read, once the minutes have been amended, approved, and adopted.
Any objections? Seeing none. All those in favor of that change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And one more
Yes-
change.
yes, ma'am.
Right under that, where it says SOP, I would like for that to be spelled out as standard operating procedure. So if members of the public look at these, they'll be able to tell to what we are referring.
Okay. Is there any objection? Seeing none, then we will change the acronym SOP going forward to say standard operating procedure. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Anybody else?
I have one correction as to the November meeting. My recollection is I abstained from the motion on the SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, and I concurred with the motion for the board retreat. Don't think it makes that much difference, but I just wanted to reflect that. That would
So-
be items number 3 and items number, mine says 9, but I'm.
Okay, well, if I may, remember we took 9 out of order
Okay.
of last week, excuse me, of a month ago, because the
Yeah.
item of the potential retreat was brought up.
Okay.
And so I went ahead took a privilege as chair to take something out of order because it was already brought up. And that's why numerically they're out of order,
Yeah.
Judge. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so knowing that, can you, again, tell us
Right.
the change that you wanted to make?
Yes. Where it says SOP policy discussion, my recollection is I abstained in that vote, where it says that I voted for it, is the way I understood this.
Okay.
And then on the board retreat, I voted for it as opposed to abstaining.
Okay. Is there any objection to that change? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Ms. Todd, are you making these notations?
Yes, sir, I am.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I have one.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes, sir. And good afternoon, everyone. I just have one minor amendment or change, is to reflect that the board did instruct me to contact Patterson Park regarding the retreat. And I don't believe that was reflected in our minutes.
Okay, so it was my understanding we did, but
Yeah.
that was not taken up in the form of a motion or a second. And since it was not, it would not be reflected in the minutes. But we can certainly reflect that in the minutes at this meeting.
Yes,
And
that
so,
would-
so what we will do, let's do this, if we may. If you'll bring that up under other business, because I know under other business, we're going to talk about the retreat
That'd be
anyway.
fine.
So then we can make the appropriate motion and second at that time. That way it'll be reflected in the minutes. Would that be
That's
satisfactory?
more than satisfactory.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other changes, amendments, or corrections? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I will move that.
Thank you. And we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved as amended. Ms. Todd, if you will get me those changes, and then before I sign off on those, if you will send those back out to the board for final approval, then I will sign them upon their approval. And all the board would have to do, if this is satisfactory, is just email me back that they meet with your approval, and then we can expedite that particular part of it. Is that okay? Fantastic. Ms. Duke, open positions, please.
Okay, we currently have had 3 staff members who are going to be transferring to the Sheriff's Department, so that we are interviewing for, internally, for 1 sergeant and 2 corporals. We still, as far as my understanding, that we still have an open part-time educational assistant. We have 1 full-time male detention officer position. We also have a position that we're going to post as a temporary position because we have a current employee who is in military reserves who is going to be out until mid-2024. And just to kind of let y'all know how temporary positions work, the person, if they agree to take a temporary position with the county, even if it's full-time, there are no benefits associated with that position because the employee who is officially in that position number maintains the rights to those benefits, let's say. So I don't know how successful we'll be in getting someone who wants a full-time position with no benefits. But it happens, and we have done so in the past, but just to let you know, that one may sit open for a little while.
Any questions from Ms. Duke about open positions? If there are no objections, I will entertain a motion to accept her report on open positions.
One question I might have before I do.
Please.
Is that advertised, those open positions, through the county's personnel department?
Internal well, yes, they are all advertised on the county website. Internal positions where we're hoping to promote from within are only viewable to current county employees within our department, or if I open it up to other departments, they can see it also.
I see.
General open positions show for everybody on the website.
So this begins internally and then you open it later?
If it is a, we generally like to give an opportunity for people who have worked within the department to take a shot at those promotionary positions. So we will start those internally, and then if they either don't meet the criteria, or if they're not a good fit at the time for that position, then we can open them up further.
So for example, somebody that's a temporary would have an opportunity to apply for a permanent?
Full-time regular, yes.
Okay, before it went out?
Yes.
To other, I see. That's
And we explain that, and that at least kind of helps them in thinking, you know, at least I can get my foot in, and then we can go from there. Because that position is going to be temporary for a very long time.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, do you desire a motion to approve that?
Yes, sir, if you don't
I
mind.
so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those approving the open positions report, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Point of order for the chair, Judge Daniel, is I think because we're all new at this, I'm wanting to be rather exhaustive in what gets into the minutes. And so since only actions taken by the board to get into the minutes, I'm just wanting to make sure these things get into the minutes. At a later date, it may not be necessary, but I'm trying to be prudent at this point, if that's okay. Data report, Ms. Duke.
So, starting with the first meeting, the vice chair had mentioned and hoped that there would be some way to see what county the young people that are detained are from, their charges, and their court dates. So we just created this on the fly. If you would like to see it in a different form, we can obviously do that. Probably the only thing that you might question is the court dates that say to be determined. I believe that those young people have been bound over to the adult system, and so those court dates have not been set yet.
That would make sense. Thank you for that report. That's good.
Is this
Yes.
format satisfactory?
It is.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Duke. Any questions? Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion to accept the data report.
So moved.
We got a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Duke, for the data report. And now, I think you want to introduce a couple of people.
Yes.
Excellent.
So since the beginning, you've also heard me talk about that we have some great employees that I'd love to get introduced to you and allow them to talk about what they do with the young folks, as well as give you an opportunity to ask specific questions. So I'm going to ask our life skills coordinator, Garland Henley, and our chaplain, Michael Davis, to come up. I didn't tell them that they had to have any kind of, come on, guys.
Here we go, guys.
Any kind of specific format, just to just, they do a great job of just telling what they do, and they knew that as soon as they got into anything with any meat to it, that there would be questions. So I'm just going to let them shoot from the hip.
Well, at this point, gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and the work that you do on behalf of the board is extremely important. Relax. We just want to, please relax. We just want to know more about you and what your passion is for doing this and why you're doing this, and just give us at least for the chair, I would like to see a little bit of the human side of what you do and how you interact, because I think we all understand and know what you do is extremely difficult and challenging. So having said that, there must be a call on your life to do this. So thank you.
Well, I would love to say we're happy to be here.
Well, you don't have to say it if you don't want to.
But no, I think it's always an honor that we get to speak to the masses or the public about what we do and the human side of these kids.
No, you're Mr. Henley, is that right?
I am, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Well, that's quite all right. Just want to make sure I know who I'm speaking with. Thank you.
Garland Henley.
Thank you, sir.
The Transition Life Skills Facilitator here. I'm grant funded, partially grant funded through the program, and so it's a great opportunity for us to be able to come out here and talk to you all and kind of share with you all what we do, some of the success that we've had, and answer any questions that you all may have.
So tell us a little bit about what it is you do on a day-to-day basis, if you don't mind.
My job is to provide supplemental educational services or transitional services for the kids. I'm kind of over that. I kind of govern over to make sure that our education department is operating within the confines of the laws that are in place for us to be able to do that and provide educational services in a detention center. That is kind of the two-line overview of my position. I'm grant funded, therefore we have to answer questions to the U.S. Department of Education and those restrictions or those compliances that they have in place for us to comply by. We go through monitoring every year, and that's probably about 2 times a year through the U.S. Department of Education as well as the state, and that happens about twice a year.
Do they set up the criteria, or the curriculum? Do they set the curriculum?
For educational services?
Or do you set it?
By law, the local, for any juvenile detention center, that local board of education is held responsible by law to provide educational services for that juvenile detention center. So for us, by law, the Rutherford County Board of Education is responsible for providing educational services or giving us the resources to be able to provide educational services to those kids that are detained here.
Right.
They have provided us with Edgenuity. It is an online platform that we use to provide educational services to those kids. The cool thing I'll say is that before the pandemic hit and students were going virtually, we were going virtually before that through that program. Due to that, we see that program is offered as well through our schools as well. So when those kids are here and we set those kids up on that program, it helps for an easier transition from what they were doing here to go back into the school system, because the school is familiar with that program and that process.
How long have you been the life skills coordinator here?
She said this was like I didn't prepare.
Garland started life out as a line staff.
Oh,
And he
okay.
worked up, I think he
No,
got to corporal.
this is very important.
Yeah.
Thank
To
you.
corporal, and then
Okay.
he had an
So this is an
opportunity to
internal,
bring.
this is an internal promotion?
Yes, he
Okay,
had an
well,
opportunity,
congratulations to
yeah.
you on that.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I think
Well, how long have you been here at this facility? Let me just ask that if I could.
I've been employed with the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center since 2001.
Wow, that's impressive.
2000.
Thank you.
No, 2004, 2010, me and my family moved away to Columbus, Ohio. 2014, we moved back.
Couldn't stand it, had to come back, didn't you?
You're right. You're right. And 2014, I came back, and I think 2015, 2016, I ended up in our education department, and I've been working as our Title I transition life skills facilitator for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just had a question. I'm off the school board, so I know that we
Okay.
provide all the curriculum for you. But what besides, outside the educational parameters, do you all provide? And this might be more for you, sir, to help these kids, these juveniles, when they leave here, to become the productive men and women that they need to be.
I'll start, and then
Okay.
I'm gonna pass it to him.
Okay.
You all have, we've been kind of doing this for a while, and I think that you all have kind of been getting to know us as far as JDC. We are most definitely a holding facility. I think, the juvenile justice system is set up to really try to provide services to that juvenile once they've committed a crime, to try to help assist that young man or young lady. So the time frame that we have with those young men and young women is not a large amount of time. So because of that, they could be here today and gone tomorrow, or they could be here today and ultimately transferred over into the adult court, and then they could be here a little bit longer. For us, it's kind of a three-step process. One, the first thing we want to do is be able to give kids exposure. Try to give them exposure to something different than what they're used to. A lot of these kids have had exposure to a lot of the wrong things. So for us, it's trying to give them exposure to something different that may look like career opportunities that exist out there that they may not know about, or it could be saying, hey, let's look at social media and how you can use it in a more productive way, and how you could really make money doing social media, because they're using social media in a completely different way. So we're trying to give them ideas and exposure to different things, different job opportunities that they may be looking at. Everybody that comes in says they want to work for themselves. What does that look like? Let's explore some ideas. The second thing is, how do we help you put a plan together? What does that plan look like moving forward? After we can help you with a plan of kind of what that looks like, because most of the time kids don't understand that there's work involved, and what does discipline play into that? And then the third thing is, how do we connect with different resources in the community? Or how can we provide outlets and connect with different resources in the community? Because we don't have them for a long period of time. How do we expose them to something, get them motivated for something, and then be able to connect with people in the community that they can continue those services or that experience along the way? That is kind of our 3-tier process. And with that, we can give exposure to a kid on day 1, day 2, and if he leaves day 3, day 4, we've kind of that's kind of been our touch for him. If that kid's been here for 2 or 3 months, we can then kind of walk him or her through a process. And that's kind of our thought process. We love education, we want to push education, but a lot of these kids, they weren't performing well in school already. We're trying to really affect mindset change. And if we can affect mindset change, everything else will kind of unfold after that, educationally, socially, behavior-wise. That's kind of a thing. I'll let him kind of go in a little bit deeper and kind of what that looks like.
So I'm Michael Davis, so they call me Pastor Mike. So I've been here since 2018. I came from, I was a pastor at New Vision. I did the inner city ministry there for 11 years. And I was approached a couple years ago to come in and volunteer some time. So I volunteered about 4 years, About two or 3 years. I used to come in on a regular basis, just talk to the young men and women about spirituality, holiness, giving them a different perspective on life. And then when I transitioned away from New Vision, the door just kind of opened for me to come and just be a part of the staff here, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So my goal is to give these young men and women a different perspective on what they thought having a relationship with God looks like. So a lot of these young men and women just kind of hear it on the streets, kind of hear it from different places, but they really don't know what that relationship looks like. So I love to give them a new mindset in creating relationships with God that they've never had before, and help them understand that it's not just knowing God, but it's having a relationship with God, and what that looks like and how they could benefit their life. Every young man and every young woman may or may not want that relationship. That's up to them. I don't force it on them. They have the opportunity to come out and speak with me. I enjoy, we do lots of one-on-one. I do a lot of one-on-one time with them. I get to hear their heart, really get to hear what they're going through. And once we kind of figure out what they're going through, I really try to focus on helping them in that area, whether it's anger issues or whether it's some things they're dealing with from their past, whether it's some things they're dealing with in that moment. I really try to focus on that, and then I've created some programming to kind of go around that to really help them with that. It's called the 11th Hour. So it's about a 16-week program. Really don't get to go through the whole 16 weeks, because like he said, most of them are not here that long, but I do pick pieces of that and really try to concentrate that on it with the detainees and have those opportunities for them to share about their life. And then we do spiritual studies. We have a Bible study that we do with them, and then Sundays I come in and I try to share the gospel with the kids on Sundays.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Any questions? from the board?
Yes,
Good, excellent.
several for Garland. So are you in charge of the basic education program as well?
I'm not in charge. We do have a Natalie Fabia she's in charge of that. I oversee it to make sure that it's done.
And the person you mentioned, is that person a certified teacher?
No, she's not. She has a master's degree, but she is not certified as a teacher. The reason being is because I think this law came into play 2017, I think it was around 2017, maybe 2018. I think we got a hold of it in 2018 where the board got involved with us to say, hey, there's a law that's been placed that we have to get involved now. We didn't have any certified teachers at that time, and because of the clientele that we work with, typically we're working with all the kids that got kicked out of school that now are here.
And the age range.
Yes, and because we deal with 11 to 18, it's hard to kind of have a certain teacher that can accommodate all those grades. So the Board of Education, their attorney, I can't remember her name, but their attorney got involved to figure out, okay, how can we bridge that gap? That's where the whole Edgenuity program came into play, is because the Edgenuity program provides, with instructions, Edgenuity with instructions, it provides certified teachers to be on that platform, so therefore we don't have to be certified as teachers, because the platform is there to provide certified teachers for them in all their different subjects. And that helps the county or the Board of Education not have to come out and pay for each teacher in each subject to come out and provide that service for us.
And is the contract with the Rutherford County Board of Education or with the detention center for Edgenuity?
That contract for the program for Edgenuity, I would say, is with the Board of Education and Edgenuity. Now, the Board of Education in Rutherford County, we have a
Memorandum of Understanding.
Yes, a MOU that we have that kind of lays out the responsibility of how that program and how that is administered to the kids. But I think the contract between Edgenuity is really between Edgenuity and the Board of Education, because the Board of Education is required to pay for that. They're paying for that.
And would it be possible for us to have a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding between detention and the Board of Education?
Yes.
And then would it also be possible for us to see the contract between the Board of Education and Edgenuity?
we can ask, obviously.
That would be a request that would have to be made to the Board of Education. but-
And I'm happy to make it.
I'm sure there would be no problem getting me that. I can talk to Dr. Sullivan and we can
Okay.
get that for you.
All right.
Thank you, Claire.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Well, I'd just like to commend both of you for your efforts. These are important things that you're doing. I mean, very, very important. It's important to reach these young people and try to motivate them to be educated, to make something of themselves, and to reach their spiritual heart as well. So, hats off to you.
It is rare that we have a young person who does not feel comfortable talking with, they call Garland Mr. G or Pastor Mike. They feel very comfortable talking with them. They love them. And whether or not they're ready to hear what they have to say, they will tell you unequivocally that they have their best interests at heart.
I bet they come back to see you if they are
Well,
released to you.
he has some examples of that.
No, well, unfortunately, sometimes they come back here to sit us.
No, I don't mean
But-
that. I'm talking about the thank you for
No,
your
oh, no,
intervention.
most definitely, you know, I think, you know, I'll pat Pastor Mike on the back for that. You know, I think one of the good things that we try to do is build a rapport. So when kids come in, you know, we want to meet with them, have conversations with them. You know, anytime we greet them, you know, first day, you know, we introduce ourselves and we call them Mr.
Right.
You know, so Mr. such and such.
Good.
And for us, you know, there's really big things for young people now that they, manhood and respect. That's kind of
Absolutely.
big for the crowd, for our clientele. So first thing for us is that we give you respect on the front end. You don't even have to earn it. We're gonna voluntarily give it to you. And us giving it to you, we expect to get it in return.
They tend to want to reciprocate then, don't they?
Yeah, so-
Yeah, I can see that.
So when we do that on the front end, and then as we sit down just to have a conversation with them, we're not talking about why you're here, we're just talking about you, and why you did, what's going on with you.
Right.
And I think that helps us to kind of get to the heart of who they are, and they see us in a little different, maybe a little bit different way. And we have the, in our positions, we get to be able to do that. We get to sit down and have that time with them, and I think it goes a long way. And so therefore, you know, we've been to baptisms and graduations and even weddings. You know, we've been invited to a wedding. So you know, I think those are things that make us walk away and say, well, maybe we're doing something. I don't know how good of a job, how great of a job we're doing, but man, we most definitely appreciate the fact that they let us in on their lives sometimes outside of here.
I appreciate what you're doing because, and I'm glad she brought you here because
Me too.
I didn't know what you did. All I know is I used to be in a high school. I used to be at Riverdale. And so I have a friend of mine who started Manmaker Academy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But it's where different coaches or mentors, teachers will identify some of these kids that need some mentoring and need some, and it's a 6 weeks course, actually it's an 8 week course, my bad. And where they at the end of this course, they give them a suit, they cross over, and they know what it really means to be a real man. Not what the streets say is a man, but what a real man is. And so it's nice to know that even on the inside, with the limited time that you're there with them, that you're there trying to help these young men and women become their best self and know that there's another alternative when they do hopefully get through all this awfulness. So I appreciate everything that you're doing because these kids deserve a chance. They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I guess we're all on the same train of thought here, which is, I think is good. I wanted to just commend you all for what you do. I did have 2 questions. And like I said, I think we're all sort of on the same train of thought. So much of what I've learned here from even my nieces and nephews is that the way you become a man or woman is the badges and the chevrons you learn on the street. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. It's exactly what they say. So my question would be, and I don't mean to put you on the spot because you guys are boots on the ground when you're on the front line. How do you all attempt to overcome that? Can it be overcome? Because my sense is that when we have young people come through detention centers is a rite of passage to the prisons. In fact, there are many who might even advocate and say that we do have a school-to-prison pipeline, and that detention centers are literally a bridge line to that. And so my question would be, how do we overcome, how do you all attempt to overcome, this idea that when I go to the D home, then that means somehow I've been sanctioned on the street and I graduate up to the next level of an offense.
Well, I think it's part of what we do is that it's giving them exposure in a different perspective.
Okay?
Because when they come in, they have this one mindset, this thought of those things mean a lot.
Okay.
But our prayer is that when they come through these doors, we're giving them a different perspective, that these things don't mean what you think they mean. And not just teaching them, but actually showing them through different videos, having different speakers to come in to share about that. So it's a process, even though it's a short process, but we do have some things in place to really show these young men and women that perspective that you had when you came in, let us show you something different and give you opportunity to see that, you don't have to be a rapper, you don't have to be a baller, and you don't have to be a thug to make it in life. But there's a lot of other opportunities out there for you. So let us help you and let us show you how you can make that happen.
If I may, Mike, let me follow up on something you're getting to, and
Yeah,
I'd like to ask if you could.
Can I respond to what he just said first, please?
Oh, please, go ahead, sorry.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being a rapper, nothing wrong with being a baller, nothing wrong with being any of those things. It's just about how you present yourself to the world.
No, what I'm
Yeah,
saying is
no,
that
no,
that's
let me-
not it.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is that those are fine, but what I'm trying to get to is this idea that the school-to-prison pipeline, do we have an idea, do we have a trend line in terms of the number of young people that may come through here that end up in the adult systems? Do we have that data?
The software that we've been using since early 2000s is, which we're fixing to transition next week into our new software, does not have the capability to run
Okay.
those numbers. Obviously, there are young people that come in one time and they never come back. There's some that it takes a couple times before they figure out, and then there's those that are going to continue through the system and visit all of the fine facilities that Rutherford County has.
Right.
We can't. We do have some parenting classes that Garland may want to talk about. It's not just the responsibility of one segment of the community, obviously,
Right.
to address it. Everybody can get on board and,
Right.
and do that as well. But I think that one of the things that we can help with in the time that we have is giving parents some tools so that when they aren't here with us, they can continue to have some of the same messages and manner of handling and working through their the issues that they have when they are at home with their family.
Okay. Thank you.
I would, if I could,
Please.
I would add to what they said. I think when you think about that pipeline, I think there's different departments or different links in that chain
Right.
that people may say hold more weight than another. I think the education plays a part in that, and I think as educators, especially in our schools, they try to identify those issues that could be a factor that could send the kid in the wrong direction. So therefore, the school system hooks up with outsourced resources, mentoring programs, Big Brother, Big Sisters. Pastor Mike had a program when he was with New Vision, the lunch buddies and whatnot that came in to try to partner up with those programs, partner up with those schools. When that doesn't happen, the teachers ask for interaction with parents. to say, hey, we need you as a parent to come in and kind of provide some resources or assistance for us as we're dealing with issues with your child. When those things don't happen, then it kind of escalates to, they could be caught into some trouble that now
Right.
the juvenile justice system gets involved to try to provide resources. I think what we try to do here is that, I think one, when Pastor Mike says, we try to change perspectives, is one, I think they have to see us as men. So when you say about a program for men, I think the first thing is they have to see real men. So we don't sit around. I think that's the thing for us, is that we don't sit around and we don't talk with street vernacular to them. We get on to them about certain things on how they approach themselves and how they speak and carry themselves. Not because we think it's wrong, because everyone can have swagger, but what we do want to make sure is that they understand how to carry themselves properly to be able to gain respect from those who don't know them yet. So that's on the front end to do that. We went to a conference with the Tennessee Department of Education and that does non-traditional education, and they kept using this term called, how do we help the whole child? That's the parenting class, is that it doesn't do us any good to kind of sit here and try to provide these services to those kids and then have them seeing things a little bit differently and then go home to the same riffraff that they're dealing with at home.
Yeah.
So when you say how do we help them in that pipeline, or how do we get them out that pipeline, I don't think you can ever get those kids out that pipeline if the parents aren't involved. So the parenting class is key for us in trying to kind of get that assistance. We communicate with the parents about their education piece along the way to kind of get buy-in from them to say, hey, we got issues here. Here's what we're going to do with them. If the kids start to act out and we feel like we can't get a handle on it, we reach back out to the parents to try to get them involved, to speak to the kids. I've called the legal guardian on the pod and said, you want to speak to him?
Yeah.
Here he is. Come speak to your granny. I think the parenting is huge. Is a big component of that.
Okay.
And because most of our kids that we get here, a lot of them are still 15, 16 years old.
Right.
The 17-year-old, he's thinking about, I could go to jail, maybe I need to change some things. So he's open to what we say. But what we've realized is if that kid is 15 years or younger, he's not interested in hearing what we think, because he still think he has time. So when you talk about that pipeline, I think there's a lot of links in the chain of that everyone's trying to play their part.
Right.
But I think the parents, really, home life carries a ton of the weight of that. And if we can't affect change at home, it doesn't matter what we do with these kids, they're still gonna have to fight the issues at home. And we got a young man that's dealing with that now. He's gotten shot 7 times. He's gotten shot 7 times. The first 5 times he got shot, he was here, and we got ran over. Shot 5 times and got ran over. He was in a wheelchair while he was here. So when we would meet with him and do some programming with him, he told us, man, I hear what y'all saying, but my daddy said.
Yeah.
So we told him, has your dad been to prison? Yeah, he's in and out of jail. We haven't. We're trying to give you an idea of how to stay out. But, he comes back, and then I see his caseworker about a month or 2 ago, and she says, hey, have you seen your boy? I was like, nah. She's like, he was shot in the head. He's living,
Yeah.
but, there's only so much we can do with his home life. He respects his daddy because of the streets.
Right, they're living between two worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge
Thank you.
that. We know
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Thank you.
Tell us some more about the work with the families. Do you find them supportive of what you do? They want the help?
Yeah, I do. Yes, ma'am. I really do. I feel that having conversations with the parents, they're really there for us, and they really keep us updated on their student detainee. And so I think when we get them involved, they're excited about some different perspectives, even as a parent, because a lot of times parents were parents. You do what I say, and it kind of goes that way. But we try to offer different perspectives to say maybe you need a parent maybe this way. Look at things like this and this perspective that could help along the way. And so we've seen some success in that too.
Do you have good luck finding mentors in extended family members? Reach out to uncles and cousins and people like
Now,
that.
as far as me, now I don't go that far, no ma'am, I don't. But I do suggest that to the parents that they really need to connect with someone when they get out. Because I always tell them it's always great to be a mentor and then to be mentored. So you kind of always have an accountability around you from somebody above you or somebody below you. So I do try to encourage them to find someone outside of here when they do get home.
And most parents too, they don't, I mean, I'm assuming most of us are parents or have been parents. You know, most of us just don't know what to do. You know,
Right.
most of us are just trying to provide, put food on the table, clothes on the backs. You know, we're just trying to make it through the process and trying to get them to be respectful individuals, as citizens in our community. So to be able to provide them with resources and different perspectives, most of them are open to the idea at this stage because they have identified we're in trouble. You know, so at this stage they're more open to the idea of saying.
Do you think, I was looking through my notes, and I do not have a copy of the Man Maker Academy. Do you think that is something that parents would be receptive to? I know it's done pretty well. We're getting it out into the schools now. And it's this 8-week course, and it would be, oh, thank you so much. Here it is right here. Could you look at that over for me and let me know what you think? Because I think that's something that even if we course mandated it, would help a lot. Because these kids need to know that if they don't change things right now, like you said, the 17-year-old may want to because he knows he's turning 18, or he or she knows to turn 18. 15 or 16-year-old. But finally, if the parents know there's something out there that does exactly like what you're talking about, Ms. McCollum, that mentors those kids and sticks with them and is someone that they could really look up to in society and say, look, I said, I don't have to. Things may be this way at home, but I've seen from this gentleman that things don't have to be that way.
Yeah.
If you could take a look at that and tell me what you think.
We might be able to, I know that, and we spoke about it last time, Pastor Mike has the program that he talked about, the 11th hour, that
Yes.
he actually does here. But now we can definitely share this with the juvenile probation office and
If you could,
the juvenile
that would be- I would
court.
appreciate it.
So that,
And see if
that they,
something that
because
might be-
not all kids come to detention. There's a whole
Exactly.
nother
Right.
piece of the puzzle that may not
If this
know.
can keep them from coming here.
Right.
You know, not just our school system, but if you've been in any kind of trouble, you know, before you get detained and locked up, that could be a resource.
I think most definitely we're always looking for resources outside our community.
It's not inexpensive. It does cost because at the end they give you a suit, but I think it's like $250 per child, and that
That's gonna
pays
be,
for all.
that's gonna be tough on the population that's coming through juvenile court. I'm just going to be honest with you. The court costs are
I know.
a struggle for some
I
families,
know.
especially
It
now.
would be nice if we could get some kind of grant to perhaps pay for this, that we could identify a certain number of children and go ahead and take care of that for them. Because at the end, I have seen a big difference in a kid that started, before they got into that program and after they finished that program. So, but
I'll be more than happy to take a look at it.
thank you, I appreciate it, I really do.
Pastor Michael, do you have a list of people that are potential mentors?
So outside of here,
Yeah.
share what well, I do with a lot of young people that do come through, I have a number that I have for them to call. So, personally, I'm able to communicate with a lot of the young men and women when they leave here. So a lot of young women, men and women, they do call me. We do go do lunch, because one of my things is, if you guys get out, let's go eat some wings. They're so excited. to
You
eat
do
some
take
wings.
slick pig, don't you?
Well, you know.
Pastor Mike, really, you were suing you were doing so good.
I
So
know,
good,
I know.
Master Mike.
I know, but it's usually BW.
Captain Cesar, what are we gonna do?
And then if they would give me a certificate.
I can make that happen.
I bet he can.
Definitely take them.
What I made reference to is if you had needs for mentors for some of the, not necessarily that are detained, but even in the juvenile system, that might be helpful for some of these mentors, men and women who would be willing to do that and be a resource for you to help those folks walk that line. That's a suggestion.
No, I think it's a good idea too, but I think
Yeah.
kind of what the battle we have too here is that, because most of these young men do not open up to
Right.
other men. So because we built a rapport with them, they are more apt to have a conversation with
Sure.
us than for us to be able to pass them on to someone else to
Yeah.
mentor.
Right.
So, so they are open to the idea, but they are very selective in who they're gonna allow to speak into their life or partner with them. And I think that's the one thing that's why I think those are the rewards that we get where we get to go to a baptism,
Sure.
get to go to a graduation or to a wedding or things of that nature. I mean, we've even been to a hospital where, a young lady had tried to commit suicide. So, we get invited to those opportunities. So I think that kind of takes place because of the work that we've been able to do inside of here.
Okay.
I know it varies, but generally speaking, how long does it take you to establish that relationship where you feel like now you can start to speak a little bit into their lives so that they're listening?
Um,
How long? I mean, it's got to take a while because they're cynical and skeptical right out of the jump, right?
Well, some is different.
Sure.
But a lot of these kids that are gang affiliated, the gangs tell them, here's what's gonna happen. So,
So they come in educated.
Right, so we don't try to approach a soft approach with them.
Right.
They're not that, so we're just upfront and honest with them. And I think for them, because they've been in the school system and kind of been through some counseling, and everyone kind of cuddles in the sense of, you can do so much better. We're like, you love your mama? Yeah. You don't love your mama. Like, that's real. Like, you don't love her. If you loved her, you wouldn't put her through this. So I think because of
So you're a little bit
approach,
confrontational in your approach.
yeah, with some softness.
Yeah, I got you.
You know what I mean? So I think the approach allows them to look at us and say, oh, okay. Oh, so you're just gonna be upfront with me. Because they're used to that. They're not used to being cuddled. And when they're being cuddled, they can play that system.
Exactly.
So I think that helps us in one sense to be able to not have to go through a process with them. It's just, here it is. You're gonna want it or you're not.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. But some need a little cuddling.
Well, they're also, they're the ones that are back there are, we have young men that have been here for a while, and they talk to each other, and they're going to say, Mr. G and Pastor Mike are straight. You can talk to them and believe what they say. So they're going to hear that as well.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. G and Pastor Mike?
Sorry.
No, I think it's perfect. On behalf of the board, thank you for spending time with us. This, at least for my part, this was very, very helpful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't have this stapled right yet, unless you just want to.
The answer is that is no, we don't want to.
Get out of here.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Lynn, thank you for making them available.
Oh,
I appreciate that
absolutely.
very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 6, I think we want to, there are those on the board that would like to discuss the settlement agreement. Since this is an item on the agenda, I'm going to ask County Attorney Eric Christensen if you'll come and just sit with us, because neither Ms. Duke nor I are can come and make yourself available. Thank you very much. Just, it's a little easier than you being on the back row.
Yes, sir.
Lynn, do you have, is this,
Well,
I guess this came
It was
from a
a
board member?
combination, I think originally Vice Chair would ask that everybody get a copy, And I think we got copies to everybody and therefore wanting to discuss a little bit.
Yeah, I thought I'd discussed what I was interested in last month, and I think Michael had some interest.
Yeah, I was the one that requested that
Okay.
we have it on
He's
here.
the author of this request.
Yeah, at least for this. And let me just, I guess, add, there's just one question I have related to this. And then if we can, just defer the rest of it to our next meeting in January 2023. Mr. Chairman?
That'll be fine. You had, but you had a question you wanted to ask, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I read last week where our government may be back in court, federal court, regarding our insurance company, Lloyd's, not being prepared to pay out on claims. And I'm just curious as to how that may impact those who filed claims as a result of the settlement agreement itself.
It will have no impact whatsoever on individuals who are part of the class action lawsuit and
Okay.
who would file claims. Just so everybody's clear, the class action claims process is over. It is completed with. Anybody who had the right to file a claim has either done so or has not done so, and the time frame has passed and their claims are forever barred. So that process is completed. Now, there's a legal dispute between the county and one of its insurance carriers over coverage of
Right.
the lawsuit.
Okay. But that won't impact any of the,
Will have no impact whatsoever. The claims have already been paid.
Okay.
Any individual who submitted a valid claim has been compensated under the terms of the settlement agreement. And so the litigation involving the county and its insurance carrier will have absolutely no effect on those.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Mhm.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so my understanding is you want to pick the settlement agreement as another item on the agenda for the January meeting?
Yes, sir.
I don't, without
And
objection.
Mr. McDonald, if you have any particular questions in advance of me in anticipation of that meeting, I'll be happy to answer them. You just give me a call in my office.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. We're now to other business. One of the things under other business that I wanted to discuss was Mr. McDonald's proposal for a retreat. Mr. McDonald, have you got some further information on that that you want to share with us? I know you proposed that idea. So
Yes,
why
sir.
don't you,
Yes, sir, I do. At our last meeting, I believe, I was asked or directed to contact Patterson Park regarding the availability of a facility for either January or February. I did do that. I reached out to Mayor McFarland by email. He contacted me within a couple of hours, and then the next morning I got a call from the director of the Patterson Park Community Center, and I believe I sent out an email to everyone regarding that. They said that it would be available. I indicated to them that, I'm only one member on the board. I couldn't bind the board to a particular date or time, and that hopefully we would take this up at our meeting today.
So I think the chair would like to discuss a little bit about the need for a retreat, and because I'm going to be a little bit candid here, my time is extremely busy right now, and it's going to get exponentially much more so the first of the year when the county has to go through their budget process. Ms. Duke and along with 23 of her colleagues will be coming through the mayor's office to try to work out the details about the proposed budget for the pending fiscal year begins July 1st. So the chair, it's unlikely the chair would have the time available to attend a retreat, especially one that's going to be hours in length. Having said that, it's not required that the chair attend, because as a retreat, I don't believe the board would be able to undertake any matters with regard to a decision. So I want to just say my attendance shouldn't reflect the need of the individual members of the board to have a retreat. It's just that I've only got a certain amount of time, unfortunately, and I have to prioritize that. So I may or may not be able to attend. So I wouldn't say the date would be I should have much of an impact on the date. It's unlikely regardless of the date. Now, some days may be better, but
Yes, sir.
it'd just be difficult. And I want to be candid about
Right.
that.
Can we discuss who should be there? Because as an example, I've had discussions with Sheila Todd, our recorder, and if it's going to be lengthy and have lots and lots of discussion, as I think it might, I don't know that I want to impose upon her on a weekend for something outside her.
Just to clarify what I said earlier at the beginning of this meeting, since there should be no action taken by the board at the retreat, and she's only there technically to record any motion or action which is reflected in a motion, a second, and a subsequent vote, her attendance may not be required. However, the board may, if they do want to take a retreat, may want to wish to record the meeting, which would be more than okay. And there would be certainly no objection from the chair at that point. But I'm just saying, since the board cannot take any action and she's recording those activities, it may not, I don't think it would be necessary. But the rest of the board may want to opine on that.
Let me ask you, your supposition that the board couldn't take any actions, why would that be so? If my interest in the retreat was to go through this 175-page, 200-page SOP and to clarify what we agreed to. And if we went through that and discussed it and decided that we had an agreement on what should be in it, why couldn't we approve it?
My understanding is that retreat was not in lieu of a board meeting, but in addition to a board meeting. And since those things came out of the retreat, would be recommended for the board to take up at their appointed time, which potentially would be the following meeting, at which time those suggestions then would be taken up and voted on. That was my understanding of the retreat. Not in lieu of a board meeting, but in addition to.
Well, we would have if we had a quorum.
Correct.
It's like we could go ahead and make a decision on it without referring it to another board meeting. But I defer to whatever the board wants to do.
Could we hear from Mr. Christensen about that?
Well, if you're going to take certain formalities and make decisions on things, you're really in the realm of a public meeting, an open meeting. You get farther away from that arguably if you're not making those decisions. I still think there is a concern, even if you're just discussing and deliberating, one could argue it is still an open meeting in which minutes would need to be taken and notice would need to be given to the public.
Sure.
With that being said, if it's going to be a 6 to 8 hour meeting, I think what the chair was inferring is, unless he's going to be there and you're going to have a reporter take the full minutes, that there not actually be a vote taken on until it comes to the next regularly scheduled board meeting. However, if the will of the board is to go ahead and have it as basically a full-fledged meeting, you're going to have to recognize all the different formalities, and you will have to have a reporter there for the entirety of the length.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is everybody looking at a 6 to 8 hour meeting or more of a 3 or 4? I was
No.
thinking no more than 3 or 4.
Yeah,
Like
I
a
thought
morning.
maybe,
Well, and it would be nice perhaps for us to set an agenda and determine what we intend
Yes.
to do at this meeting.
right, I guess,
I'm more inclined to 3 hours
That's
for
what
me,
I
or I don't see 6 hours and taking a lot of.
yes, it was not my intention that we have a lengthy, long, drawn-out retreat. I mean, 2-3 hours max.
Well, I
And-
guess the chair is
Yeah.
confused, which isn't the first time. You can ask my wife of 40 years. But when the term retreat was used, that had a broad connotation.
Right.
I've done business retreats before, and basically it's an informal way to remove yourself from the stipulations or the parameters of an actual board meeting. But what this sounds like this is turning into is another board meeting. Because I'm not sure what we're retreating from at this point. And we talked about initially being off campus and getting to know each other better and getting to know the process better. My understanding, it was going to be initially quite informal, but now it's taken on as a result of these conversations, a little more formal tone, which would then look more like another board meeting as opposed to a retreat. So that was why I said
Right.
6 to 8 hours.
Well, let me just maybe offer a point of clarification. My intent was that we have a regular meeting where we just identified working on the consent decree itself. And then also maybe one or two other items that were related to our October meeting or November meeting. So that would, again, that would kind of give us some parameters to work within, having one or three items that we just dedicate our time to. It would be a regular meeting, and it would be held at Patterson Park.
When you say the consent degree, what are you talking about?
He's talking about that settlement agreement.
The
I'm
settlement
sure.
agreement. the
And we need to
175 days
discuss
out.
it?
Well, that's one of the things that we had on there to discuss.
I don't
We
think.
talked about that, did we not?
I think that what we're talking about is the two parts of the agreement, which requires us to do certain things and under supervision. One is this SOP and how they get, the people get into the detention center, which is what I talked about last time. And that's all in the SOP. So that's my aspect of dealing with this. These other issues, we have, first of all, the statute that we're operating says that our meetings are here. Okay, so if it's a meeting.
Correct.
It's here. And if we're dealing with that particular issue. And the second thing in that statute that I'm trying to get done is it said we had to approve this SOP. We hadn't got it done yet, and
Right.
that needs to be resolved. So those are the two issues. I don't care if it's a meeting or additional meeting or it's a retreat. Those are the issues that I'm trying to get done.
Well, Judge, and you'll bring up two very good points with regard to the obligation and charge of this board. And so, to that point, if we want to schedule additional board meetings to address the SOP, then by statute, you're correct. They have to be done here because this is the only latitude we have is with regard to the board doing its business. So
Right.
if you have a retreat at Patterson Park, it is just that. It's not a board meeting. The board has to meet here because
Right.
Eric, help me out here. We were having, I'm sorry, Nick, my apologies. It's already been a long day. I beg your forgiveness, Eric. Nick, it's my understanding that we were trying to do some research, the county commission was, about having a meeting at the courthouse since that wasn't stipulated, and we're still undecided whether or not if based on conditions here, if we could even move the meeting. Is that not correct?
That's correct, and, so, for the time being, the meetings are supposed to be here.
Correct.
I think that the county commission is taking steps to changing the language of the, call it statute, I'll call it private act, to allow for the meetings to be at the courthouse, which is maybe a better, more unaffiliated place, as to your point, sir. I know it's not Patterson Park, but like for your official regular meetings, that's where it would be. Yes, sir.
But until that private act is amended and passed by the General Assembly, really, there's not a lot we can do, correct?
For your regular board meetings, you probably want to stick to the letter of the statute.
Thank you.
To the judge's point, there's one particular section of your SOP that deals with intake. And at current, it simply recites reference to the TCA, which is the ultimate determinative factors that are supposed to be followed. So any SOP that you all create needs to be very much in line with what that TCA says, because it lays out specifically and expressly the conditions upon which you can detain a youth upon their initial intake. So now whether in real life who is making that determination, whether it's a neutral detached magistrate or judge or some other person, the criteria that has to be considered, the only criteria that can be considered is what's laid out in the statutes referenced already in your SOP.
I agree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And the alleged filter system from the lawsuit is not in place and has not been in place for probably almost 5 years now. When the preliminary injunction was entered by the court prior to the litigation even being over, far from being over, that use of that quote-unquote alleged filter system cease.
And you're telling us that that alleged filter system has not been in place for 5 years?
For approximately 5 years. And then as part of the ultimate final order, that as part of it, there was a paragraph in the order that extended that restriction as a permanent injunction, meaning in perpetuity going forward, we could not use that filter system, and instead we are expressly required to comply with the TCAs that I referenced earlier that are already referenced in your SOP.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think in light of what we learned today, I will ask that we, I guess the motion that I had, rescind that in terms of us moving or trying to go to Patterson Park. I agree we need to take with the letter and spirit of the law regarding our meetings. So,
Okay. I don't think any action is taken.
Okay.
Necessary, but.
What I would like to do is to identify when we're gonna do this, and so we can get it on the calendar and be prepared to come here and resolve those issues on the SOP.
For the part of the chair, I think the first couple of 3 meetings in here was just to kind of get to know Juvenile Detention Center and their people. But for the part of the chair, Judge Daniel, I'm ready to begin that process in January.
Okay.
I'm at the will of the committee at this point in this regard. But I think we can't begin that process that part of it soon enough, because that's why we're here. We're not really here for much of anything else other than that, and I'd like to see us go ahead and take those things up if you're agreeable to that. And again, the will of the committee.
So that brings the question, when, at what date?
Well, are we ready to discuss the date? Because we can.
Let's do it.
One thing I'd like to bring up, county attorney did a draft of the SOPs that included some changes he'd made.
Well, I didn't do that draft. That was a draft that was already in existence, and I just read through the whole thing and made technical changes and other sort of legal changes because there were certain aspects of the SOP that incorporated TCI minimum standards that are not yet in effect, that are still being spoken about up at the state department, and that will likely become effective, but were not yet in effect. So I redlined those out since they're not technically TCI minimum standards. We didn't want our SOP to conflict with those.
And I would like for us to work from your draft that includes the changes you've made. That would appear to be the most accurate draft for us to go forward with.
A lot of grammatical changes and spelling, and a lot of that was necessary too, and those are in yours.
And make sure, Ms. Duke, I think I gave it to her, and if she disseminated it out, that's the last I've looked at it. And
Okay.
so that if you want to work on that one, that's, do that. Yes, ma'am.
I agree, we ought to work off that.
I tell you what, but this is important. Let's put that in the form of a motion, if we may, as a
Yes.
start point for going over the SOP. Ms. Coleman, if you'll make that motion.
Yes, I would move that we work from the county attorney's draft that includes deletions, corrections, things like that.
And Judge Daniel, you're
I
offering the
second the
second?
motion.
Excellent. Let's have a vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
And I believe we received that electronically, and it is quite lengthy. Would it be possible for detention to print that for us and people could come pick it up? I'd hate for you to have to
Yes.
mail it.
Or
and
if
have
I
that
may,
cost.
offer an alternative, Ms. Duke, if my office can provide that service. It may
Okay.
be easier for you to come to the courthouse, so we will provide that service.
Awesome.
If you will do me a small favor and just contact Rachel and tell her that,
Tell Rachel?
Yes.
She's in it now.
you would do me a great service. You can even say the mayor requested that I contact you. You can say that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I'm sorry?
I said, I got one from Ms. Duke, but it's in small, teeny-weeny print.
No, we will.
But that's
Oh, I
We
didn't.
can take care of that at the courthouse, and then we will send out an
That
email
wasn't on
and those
purpose.
become available. Should be no later than later this week.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Before we get to the January meeting, do we have any other business that we need to discuss?
One item that I'd like to bring up, it's not on the agenda, but we've already had some indication, both from you and Ms. Duke, that we have a responsibility to assist in helping her propose a budget, and I wanted to know about how much involvement or what we need to be doing, and is that something that should be docketed in our January meeting?
The process, the first thing that happens is the finance director, Michael Smith, will send out a notice to all the directors telling them they've got a notice of a budget meeting whereby they bring their proposals to the mayor's office. He's there, and so we sit there and kind of craft that. And I spend a lot of time with each one of the directors going through that because, you know, all the numbers got to add up, right? And so but we start generally from the existing budget and find out what additions, corrections, or deletions need to be made. So it's not like we're starting from scratch, but at the same time, it's a significant endeavor.
When is her?
It hasn't been scheduled yet. She will receive a notice from Michael Smith, the finance director,
okay.
and then she'll reach out to Rachel and schedule that with Michael, myself, and I in the office. I would think, Judge, that it would probably be February or March before we could see a little bit of that. Again, and I want to caution the budget that I propose to the county commission is nothing more than that. It's the county commission that has the final say, obviously, in a form of a vote. So once I get to where we're in agreement, I think it might be appropriate, and I want to check, but I think it might be appropriate that I bring that to you guys and we kind of discuss it, if that's okay.
So our responsibility right now in this endeavor, I'm trying to be helpful to Ms. Duke and be proactive.
No, I appreciate it.
So we should just wait for further instructions.
Yeah, just at least until we get something scheduled.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Any other?
I just have two very quick
Yes,
things.
ma'am. Go ahead, please.
One thing I would like to throw out for a quick discussion is if we could get any additional agenda items 2 weeks before the scheduled meeting, because I'm running out of time getting everything copied and printed and mailed, and if it's a last minute thing, I can change it, but you won't have a hard copy. Or if y'all don't care about the hard copies, we'll cut that out of the process. I just want to make sure I have enough time to get everything
So,
as it needs to be.
Let me ask a question, and I'm very sensitive to the fact. So you're asking for any request to be made on the agenda, especially where there are materials that need to accompany that part of the agenda, be made at least 2 weeks prior to that next meeting scheduled date, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's a great idea, but I would like to hear from the board. But also, Lynn, you can reach out to my office, especially in this interim period where we're trying to figure our way through this, for those additional resources, okay?
Okay.
So please do, and I'll let them know that, because you only got so many hours in a day.
Okay.
And we understand that. But anyway, comments from the board on the 2-week notice for materials for the agenda?
I think we definitely need to set a day by which you get things. Now, if something comes up during that 2-week period, that could be handled as other business.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Just as far as what you see typed on an actual page, I just don't want to slight anybody, but I also just need some time.
So generally, other businesses, stuff that, like you said, Ms. Coleman, does come up after the agenda is set, and we got a lot of flexibility there. The only caveat I would say to that, if don't make it a big something. Don't make it like where she's got a lot of work to do and she's only got a finite number of time to do it. Hopefully, but I doubt that'll happen only because we're getting all the big stuff done out of the way out the front end, so that'll be fine.
Well, here's a suggestion. I know you have to mail it, and that mail takes time. I think I actually got the printed agenda Saturday, but it would be fine with me is whatever date you cut off is fine, but you could just email it to me.
Does anybody want hard copies?
And I can print it
No.
out.
We're not doing that anymore.
I don't want, Mr. Michael did not speak, but so we don't, the chair will not speak for Mike.
He's not saying anything.
Silence is golden.
That's fine. That would
Yeah.
save you some time.
And because I realized that maybe I think the last week I sent something in and it was right on the tail end. And I get that. I understand it didn't make the agenda. So I don't have a problem with not getting a hard copy.
And can I inquire, where is the agenda posted after you finalize it? Is it on your website? Is it on the county's website? Are there, maybe we need to hear from the county attorney about
Well, I don't know that.
what's required.
I don't know the answer to
Okay.
that question, Ms. Duke might, but.
I don't know that it is posted.
We probably need to post it somewhere, perhaps on
Now,
your website.
there is I know that Rachel does the notice of the meeting. Now, I don't know if, I think the agendas are usually posted on the county website under the boards, and I might have to get with OIT.
Well,
Sonia?
we need to find that out.
I think we're going to get some clarification. Sonia Stevenson is head of HR for Rutherford County. Sonia?
So on the county's website, OIT does a calendar and it has all the board meetings, so it's actually listed on that calendar as the date and the time of the meeting. But what we need to do is get OIT to add under other boards, because Correctional Work Center and some of those are under the other boards category, and just add a folder for JDC. So any of the items that you talk about in here can be added to SharePoint, and then they'll be there for public view. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
And Ms. Stevenson, is that time sensitive? Should it be up the Friday before the meeting on Monday?
Typically, they try to put it up, so in your scenario, yes, because it is on a Monday, I would say yes, any documents that they would have, in order for that to happen, they would need those by noonish on Friday, if not sooner. You know, preferably probably Thursday afternoon to give them time to add those to SharePoint. And anything after that time would be based on if they have the time to add it. That's an OIT thing, you know, because they're spread out. Some of the individuals that actually assist with that are in, you know, the room with us right now. So they're spread out
It's
all
not,
over.
it's not going to be an issue to post that on the website via SharePoint. That's a minor thing, quite honestly. And so, Sonia, if you will help me look into that, please, ma'am. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
My last item is just, we're going to shout out to Rick's Barbecue. Pastor Mike reached out to them prior to Thanksgiving. And although Summit, our food service company, does a wonderful Thanksgiving, it's still what the kids would consider school food. So anytime we can get a company or a restaurant to bring some happiness, we try to make that happen, and Pastor Mike is awesome. And so Rick's Barbecue made sure that the kids had chicken tenders, green beans, mac and cheese, cookies, and sweet tea, in addition to their school Thanksgiving.
School food, right.
That's nice of them.
Amen. And finally, the January meeting date. Judge, when we first began this process, you said the second Monday of the month was not available for the rest of this calendar year, but it might be for the next
That'd be
year.
fine.
So does anybody have an objection to, because I think January 2,
And I have written out a list of all the second Mondays. I would like for us to set the meeting dates for the year, or
Yes.
at least 6 months.
as
So-
long as there's no conflict with holidays and that kind of thing, I mean.
I think
and
we
I
have
don't- and I'm fine with that.
We may have cross-referenced already, but we do have the holiday calendar available.
Oh, well, let me have that. We don't mind.
So these are second Mondays.
I don't see a conflict anywhere. So is it the recommendation of Ms. Cullum to change from the first Monday to the second Monday for the
Yes, sir,
calendar
it
year
is. And I
2023?
think first Mondays have
March
some
Madness,
holiday
we can do.
implications, and the second Mondays appear
That's right.
to work pretty well.
That's right.
Well, I will tell you, the chair really appreciates the idea of going through the second Monday because this is a very, very busy day for me.
Okay.
Is everybody okay? Okay, we've got a motion to change the meeting date from the first Monday of the month to the second Monday of the month beginning in January.
And do you want me to read these out, the dates,
Uh,
or just give it to
That won't be
Sheila?
necessary, just give those to Ms. Todd, and she can enter those in if that's okay. But if
I'd be
I,
happy to second.
we got a happy second, and can we have a vote on that, please? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it without any objection, praise God. So, Mister, you have no idea, Michael. This is such a little, this is wonderful Christmas present to the chair.
Really?
Oh, yes. First Mondays of the month are extremely long.
All right.
But so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other questions, comments, or pithy quips from the committee?
One other thing on the agenda this month, we did not add, which we moved and it was passed last month, to put a public comment item on it. And so I think that ought to be in there, to give an opportunity for the public comment.
So it was the understanding of the chair that public comment had already been improved by the committee. Is that incorrect? That
That's true.
we limit it to a total of 30 minutes,
Yep.
3 minutes each? Okay.
It's just
So you're
not
just
on
saying
our
it's
agenda.
not on the agenda?
Right.
We will, make note in the minutes, please. I know there's no formal action taken, but we will make sure that is in the agenda going forward. And that notation by you will remind Rachel when she puts the agenda together, or Ms. Duke, working with Rachel to put that. Let me make a suggestion before we wrap up. I would like the public comments to come at the front end of the meeting. So basically, after we call the roll, is there any objection to that?
None.
Okay, excellent.
I did reach out to the sheriff regarding if there's any heated discussion topics that we had concerns about, whether or not he would be able to supply anybody. And at this time, he says he is unable to do so. He has a shortage of employees by 41 at the time of his email, and that he just does not have the overtime dollars to do it.
Let the chair take another prerogative. That's somewhat of a relief. I would like not to have a sheriff's deputy unless we encounter a problem. I think we'll be fine. I really do. Now, if there's an objection from any of the committee, I'm glad to hear it, but I think that's not necessary at this point, and I don't think that is required, unless there's objection. Oh, you're giving me that look. We're good?
I'm
Okay.
sitting near the door, we're fine.
Excellent. If there is no objection, we stand adjourned.
Happy holidays, Kevin.
Merry Christmas.